The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
We are two Unks Talking TV. You know the shows that you grew up watching, like Family Matters, Facts of Life, and Three's Company too. So come and join us and take a walk down memory lane as we talk about these shows that are so nostalgic. We're just two us.
All right, good people. That's enough of that. What's going on, y'all? Uncle E-Buck in the building. My man's Uncle Hugh. And y'all know what time it is. It's two unks. We talking TV once again here on a Thursday. Sorry for the late delay. We had some technical problems. You know, ever since it got cold for real, all type of crazy stuff been going on in the systems. You know what I'm saying? But maybe it's that. Maybe it might be because of what we talking about tonight. Because for those of y'all who said, yeah, the comedies is cool and whatnot, but can we talk about some other stuff? Sure we can. And tonight we gonna do that. We in fact are talking about something entirely different this evening. Tell them what we talking, Hugh.
Welcome to Dairy, man.
Oh,
Definitely
sucking now. It's the
been up this
spooky.
show, and I've been loving that, man. I know he's been definitely feeling different over there now about some of my stuff I've been doing. I told him something. I don't think he was listening. I told him my inspiration as of now was coming from Mr. Stephen King. And I definitely been making my own little stuff too, man. And my little skits. There's been definitely something that you would definitely like if you're a horror movie fan. I would definitely vouch for that.
That dude Hugh got issues, y'all. I'm just saying. But anyway, we talk a welcome to Dairy Night. As always, we strongly encourage y'all to hit the comments with your thoughts. We want to know, of course, your favorite scenes, your favorite parts of Dairy, your favorite parts of the It universe, your favorite characters, the whole deal. Keep in mind, I know bits and pieces, so I'm gonna count on my brother a lot this evening to explain to me the welcome to Dairy and the It universe and all of that. And for those of y'all interested, he will do that for you as well. Like I said, chime in, chime on in. That being said, shut up a little bit and let Hugh get us jumping. Tell us about Welcome to Dairy, sir.
Man, that series has been great so far, man. But I had told people too, if you want to watch it and really understand it to the fullest, you can watch certain movies and break down certain movies that's in there, man, from the actual Stephen King multiverse. But I told people for the most part, if they wanted to be comfortable and kind of understand what was going on, you don't have to get super technical on a lot of things. What I've learned is you can still know from the It movies, you know, part one and two. And I believe since they did so well with the chapters one and two, it is talks right now. It's going to be two more movies. One of them's going to be like a super cut. They're going to do some of the deleted scenes and stuff that they had in part one and part two, and they're about to make that into a big movie. And like I said, with Andy Muschietti, he was saying it's a possibility he's going to do a part three as well. So it's a lot of stuff that come out. And then you have the other two seasons of Welcome to Derry. But the series was really good. And I know a lot of people, when they look at the series, they be like, damn, man, it's kind of disturbing because whenever you watch the show and then that intro song, man, it's very creepy. But you already know when you see that Welcome to Derry, some kids is gonna die in the episodes, man. So that's the creepy part about it. But it was actually really good to watch because we was talking about that before too. They put it up against some stiff competition in Stranger Things, man. And I know it's a lot of people who love that series. it kind of fell off at the end to me, those last 2 to 3 episodes, especially after the episode 4. Everything just kind of went downhill from there. But as of with the Welcome to Dairy, it seemed like at first people were starting to chime in, and then the last 2 to 3 episodes just skyrocketed in ratings, man. And I was very happy about that. But yeah, man, what was so cool about it was at the beginning, you thought that you was gonna have a new losers club, you know. And I said, "Oh man, those some cute little kids, man." Okay, yeah.
Now, come on, man. You explaining these things. You know you got to explain first of all who was the losers club, man. Because some of us don't know. I know that much, but we gotta let everybody else know.
Oh yeah, you had your losers club, man, for the most part, man. The original losers club, man. And my homeboy, a lot of y'all know him, from the movie Ladybugs, and he played in a lot of other movies. Bill, man, and then you had Haystack, the big kid who ended up being John Ritter. And it was the whole crew that was in the original one. But then you had the Losers Club too in chapters 1 and 2. You had the younger version and the older version of the characters. And the same thing right now. Well, it wasn't really no young and older in this new Welcome to Dairy. It was just the young kids. And the first episode was so disturbing, man, because when you thought that you was gonna see like a brand new Losers Club and them kids, man, I think he killed 4 of them real fast. Because their boy Maddie ended up being missing. And then when they was looking for Maddie, man, that was the whole thing. We thought, okay, is Maddie still alive? And that was the cool part about it because all you seen was like a little pacifier that he had. And he used to, use because he was like one of them kids who got mistreated kind of by his father. He was like kind of a angry, abusive dad. So he was like an outcast. And when he died, man, we was looking for clues for this kid, man. But when he popped back up, I was like, something ain't right, man. This dude don't look like the same Maddie that we knew. And that's when we was introduced to Pennywise. And what made this series so good, he was the fact that
Now, hold on. Here, people, Pennywise. Tell us about Pennywise.
I want to know first and foremost too, who is your favorite Pennywise? I know a lot of old school people still love the Tim Curry version, which I was surprised that he did something that creepy, man. And then you had Pennywise from, of course, the original Tim Curry, and then you have the new Pennywise was in the Welcome to Dairy in chapters 1 and chapter 2 of the series, and that's Mr. Bill Skarsgård. I want to know who are your favorite when it comes to those two because I loved Tim Curry for a long time, even after the chapter 1. But once chapter 2 came around, I was like, man, this Pennywise, the Bill Skarsgård version was like the books Pennywise. Because Tim Curry, you couldn't really do that much in the 80s with a TV series because they wanted to do a movie, but I don't know if you knew about that. They wanted to do the movie, and what happened was they banned it. They said, hell no, y'all ain't doing no movie, not on it. And then they ended up making it a miniseries, and that's what happened because I think that it would have definitely been really good to watch in a movie theater. But I think that idea, you had to kind of water down some of it too by it being on regular TV. But yeah, it was one of the better series that I've seen, man, from the beginning to the end. And like I said, the beginning was kind of slow, and a lot of people didn't realize this by it being in the sewers, and you knowing all this stuff going on is when you see things happen like with the people in the town. You was like, well, why the hell is these people not stopping these kids fighting and doing things like you normally see? Like if you see some kids fighting, you gonna make sure you try to break it up or stop it, before it get out of hand. The parents will look and they'll see it and they'll see the kids fighting and they'll turn the other way. Not only was it to the point where he was a bad entity, but by him being in the sewers and the pipelines and stuff, man, a lot of people didn't notice he contaminated their water too. So their water supply was contaminated by him because that was his hideout. By him being in that well and that water layer, a lot of him had to do with some of the people in the drinking water, man. So yeah, it was a really deep series, man. But from the part when I first seen it to the beginning to the end, yeah, I don't think it was really too much of nothing in those series right now. This season actually what can max that out or was better than that as far as where it goes because you got Martyrin, the cosmic turtle, and a lot of people don't know
Orlando,
about.
come on, here we go.
I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but that's how it all started though. You got Mandarin, the cosmic turtle, and he basically in the books regurgitated or vomited the earth. And what happened was Pennywise got punished and he got kicked off of that planet. And when he came here like millions of years ago, he was here before technically Earth existed. And the pieces of shards that they had, they put those shards in like that turtle shell to basically represent him on the series. But the shard was from what had him locked up and in prison. And that's where they had him at. That's why he stayed in Derry and he couldn't go nowhere else because they had it like in different places in that turtle shell to protect it. And then, of course, them silly dudes from the army started messing around with all the stuff that was around him and they was trying to take it because they felt like when he went back to sleep because in the show after a certain amount of time he'll go back to sleep for like 20 something years 28 years and he'll come back. So when that happened they was trying to mess around with the pieces that had him in place and had him aligned so he can't leave Derry. And then once they started tampering with those pieces, man, he noticed something like, damn, something ain't right. And that's when he was able to go out and just do his thing. And the dope part about it is so many movies you can catch up and watch to really understand the full part of this whole Welcome to Derry. Like you can watch Dark Tower, Stand By Me, Salem's Lot, The Shining. It's several movies that goes right along with this. And Shawshank Redemption, a lot of that ties into it. And that's what made the actual Welcome to Derry so good too. Because you had the part where you seen the Shawshank Redemption jail when people was doing wrong and they were gonna get sent off. That's where they went to the Shawshank Redemption jail. But Dick Halloran was a huge part of this too. I know one of my homeboys, Eric Merriweather, he didn't like the fact that how they put Dick Halloran in there and had the army involved into it. And those are all the shinings he was in too. That was the original one with him and Doc, at the top, over on your left. I didn't really too much care for the Stephen King's The Shining, the one that they did, the remake, but that's him again. I like the Doctor Sleep one though. That one was pretty good because a lot of people didn't know in the Stanley Kubrick book, he passed away or they killed, my man's Dick Halloran in there, but Dick Halloran didn't really die. So that's why I don't think Stephen King really too much cared about the Stanley Kubrick books because Doc was still alive. He was banged up and he got hurt and the wife ended up, getting him out of there and escaping and they escaped that Overlook Hotel. And that's why when they did the new movie Doctor Sleep, he was still alive and he was mentoring Danny. I like the fact that they did that. And then you had the younger Dick Halloran that was on the far bottom on the right. And that's where we're going. It was 1960s and he was in the army. And that's where we go at from the Welcome to Derry. And the cold part about the Welcome to Derry too, I know you didn't see it, but the actual sergeant, the captain wanted him to go and he had a slingshot of his and he took him back to Derry. And then, his shining powers was so powerful that he was able to use that slingshot and to get into its mind. And when he did that in the actual, Welcome to Derry series, the scary part about it was he didn't know that his powers was that, massive to be able to track down Pennywise. And that was one of the first things in there you seen about Pennywise was you didn't even see his face. You just seen those dead lights that he have. And the dead lights basically is his original form with them dead lights, when you looked in them dead lights, that's all you seen. It was like a dark room and it was like water where he was basically in a sewer and he was like in one of these crazy like church caravans or like one of the church wagons back. I'm not church wagons, Lord. One of the circus wagons. And he came on and he said, "Who are you?" And that's when he saw him and he was basically talking to Dick Halloran, scared the hell out of him, of course. And when they was asking him by that time what happened, because he was so deep into The Shining, he almost killed himself because he was in the plane. He opened up the plane thinking that it was actually where he was, and he was still blanked out and going through the shining phase. They had to save him and recover him on the plane. And when he got back to his senses, man, he was traumatized. They had him like almost in a psychiatric ward or something. And that's when he was saying, man, I don't think that we should be trying to look after him, man. He didn't know we exist. And now he know that we do, man. I don't think that we should even bother him, man. And we should have just left him be. And that's where it really got good at, man, because the first episode was kind of like sad, but it was cool because the little girl, they just started noticing weird, funny things. And that's when they said, let's go ahead and, let's see what's going on. Because, when Maddie disappeared, they was looking for him, and that's how it started. And that's when Ronnie came a part of the crew of people who was looking for him. You had Richie, you had Lily, you had Ronnie, and Marge wasn't even a part of it yet. So, you had Will, Richie, Ronnie, and Lily. They were all together. They went to the movie theater, and there was a lot more kids too, man. It was like at least about, I'm gonna say about 7, 8 at the time. But he killed 4 of the kids when they went to the movie theater because he was mad again. It was like this weird, like bird baby situation, man. And it was so disgusting because the lady, when Maddie was trying to leave dairy, they picked him up, the father and the family. And you start to notice weird things about the family, but then she had the baby in the ride, man. And when she had the baby, you couldn't see it. And when it popped up, it was like this death angel or something, man, with wings. And it was very disturbing. But that same death angel came from the movie theater when they went to the movie theater and killed the 4 kids. Nobody knew how the kids died or what happened, but all they knew was it was a black man who was running the theater. And when he was in the theater and, Ronnie's dad, everybody was trying to figure out what happened and why those kids passed away. But they never found out. So they wanted to take him down in general. So the kids was doing little stuff like they did their research and was trying to find out what the heck happened to their friend. And if I'm moving too fast, let me know because like I said, that second, episode was kind of slower, and the kids was basically gathering their bikes. They was trying to go and find clues to where they can find him at because it was like some type of ritual that Richie was talking about that people do. And they do this ritual, and it was like, almost like voodoo or like a black magic ritual. And when they were in the graveyard, of course, all they did was just mess around with the wrong people at the wrong time. And you were seeing Pennywise, but at the same time, you had the young lady who really was Bob Gray's daughter, Ingrid, at the time. She was there and she was basically trying to gather him so he can come back out because she basically thought that that was her father until she didn't. When she found out he wasn't her father, it was too late. But yeah, man, it was just a really good show, man. And I know you probably have some questions too, Eve, man. I want to know, is there anything that you would like to know about this
I
series?
got so many questions. Okay, see, here's the thing. Again, there was 2 times where I attempted to watch the show for the
Hmm.
sake of the discussion and for
Hmm.
me just trying to gain some understanding.
Okay.
I feel like this was one of those things that you would definitely find interesting if you like horror. If you like horror, I don't think it mattered about any of the storyline because you get plenty of killings up in this piece, so you good. 2, if you basically were a Stephen King fan and read the books and had that understanding, then I'm sure you were a big fan as well. And that accounts for a lot of people because millions of people watch these episodes every week. So, if some of us did not, that's one thing, but a lot of people did. Now, part of what I've had trouble with when I was doing my research is the whole universe, multiverse type scenario. Can you kind
Mhm.
of explain that a little more?
Yeah, without really getting too crazy deep into it.
You kind of got to get a little deep into it because right now it's real jump.
A lot of people didn't know that it was a multiverse, and a lot of those movies tie in with each other. Like I told you, man, it's like
Yeah, like
several
for
movies.
example, you mentioned Stand By Me. How does that tie into the multiverse?
A lot of people felt like at one point Stand By Me had something to do with it because, yes, I was talking to one of my homeboys, Gregory Alford, and he didn't even know about that. I said, Greg, don't you know that in Stand By Me when the little boy died, man, that was supposed to been when he died by like the certain area and it was like killed, like it was almost by like a sewerage area. I said they thought that it was somebody who just killed him or somebody, did harm to him, because he's a stranded kid and somebody basically like a crazy person went out and killed him. No, man, they said that some of the origin has something to do with Pennywise because they all tie in with each other. Like, for instance, like I was telling you, the Shawshank Redemption started off in like 1947 and 1967. That's one of the movies you will have to watch. And then in 1959 with Stand By Me.
Okay, now
So,
I understand because Shawshank Redemption was not a spooky movie. I
mhm.
actually did see that movie. Where does that tie into the story?
It's tied into the story because when you was in this Welcome to Derry, that's still the prison that they had. That's where you went whenever you did any dirt or you did some crimes. They took you to Shawshank Redemption. So all this stuff happened around the same time. The Woken to Dairy was like in 1962, and by that time he would have saw everybody who was in that Shawshank Redemption jail. But what happened was, of course, Pennywise got to that actual wagon where the people was at, and Hank was able to escape. And Hank was the father of Ronnie of the kids who was at the movie theater because that was the first black theater that was showing movies back then. So that's where Hank came in at it because he was on the run because of course it was a black guy. He had a theater, kids dying in his theater. They want to know what's going on. They had questions. And yeah, that's where most of that Shawshank is, man, because that's where he was gonna go in the actual movie. But then, like I said, Pennywise, of course, got to that wagon and that never materialized. And then the funny thing is, like between Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me, and Welcome to Derry was like from 1947, 1959, 1962. So that was all around the same time. And the Salem's Lot, The Shining, It Chapter 1 in 89, Chapter 2 in 2016, Dreamcatcher. So you had all these movies that intertwine with each other. And that's what made it so deep to me. And my favorite was the Castle Rock because in that Castle Rock series, Bill Skarsgård was in there, and a lot of people slept on that. That's a Hulu series, just in case you guys want to check that out, because that's where Martyr when the Cosmic Turtle comes in, and he was the protector of the entities of the Castle Rock. And Doctor Sleep was so cool to me too, because a lot of people slept on the Doctor Sleep. What happened in the Doctor Sleep? Did you ever see the movie The Shining?
I saw bits and pieces. Yeah.
The original Shining, a lot of people thought the little boy, Danny Torres, was crazy or he had like an imaginary friend. But what made that so dope, if you seen the original Shining and you seen Doctor Sleep, he was talking to himself. He was a child protecting himself as an adult in Doctor Sleep. He was giving himself clues in the future on there. And one of the girls on there, it was a young black girl. She had a stronger shining than anyone. Her shining was stronger than Carrie's, and her shining was
Okay,
stronger
time
than
out. Time out. Explain the shining thing. Is this like a special power?
yeah,
Is it like a golden glow? What exactly is the
it's
shine?
like a telekinesis power or just like a vision that you have.
Okay.
Carrie was strong because you saw the creepy Carrie movie. And it was basically her power. She can move things with her mind and telekinesis. Doc had it where, like in the Welcome to Derry movies, and then The Shining, you can talk to people and you can kind of read their mind, or you could talk to a person without even saying a word. And that's where you get his grandmom from, because in Welcome to Derry, that was a sick scene, man, where um, the grandfather knew that the grandmother and Doc was talking to, not Doc, Dick Halloran, when they were talking to each other with The Shining. And he basically wanted to know clues and know things. And that's what made it so dope because in the Doctor Sleep they showed too, it was a box that he had because it's like with his powers, at the time when he had him, he was scared because, dead people would come to him and ask him things, and, they'll ask him certain stuff, and he couldn't control it. It was so bad to the point where he was losing his mind. And that's when his grandmother showed him a box that he could put all that stuff in and like lock that box so he won't lose himself, man. And that's what made the Welcome to Derry so good, because at one point, Pennywise was harassing him as his grandfather and forced him to open that box. So when he came out of that, the trance he was in, or his shining, trying to look for Pennywise, Pennywise had the upper hand on him. So when he left the sewer and he looked up, he was seeing dead people who passed away, and people all was around him and asking him questions. And wherever you died at in the actual Welcome to Derry, those people were coming back to him. And yeah, it was pretty cool because at one point, unfortunately, he was going to try to kill himself because he couldn't control it anymore. But yeah, it was some good stuff in there, man, that people don't understand. And my favorite episode was, and it was a sad episode too, was the Black Rock episode where, I said the Black Rock, it was the Black Spot, where black people were going in the army, and I think Dick Halloran and the fellas just wanted to get a place where they could hang out and go out because, yeah, they didn't feel comfortable being in the bars because, like I said, it was 1962, so it was still a lot of racism going on back then. They didn't want to be in the same bars with white people because they were looking at them kind of strange and didn't really want to have them there because you know how it was back then. We still got a little bit of racism now, but it wasn't just blatantly out in the open like how it is on, back in the 1960s. So
Okay, I know that plays a part in it, the time period, but also if I remember correctly, Derry is supposed to be based in like Maine.
yes, it's like a Dairy Maine.
Yeah,
And the
and
crazy
of course, that kind
it
of
goes. Because what makes this so decent too is this whole Welcome to Derry is like right now. Remember before, if you watch the original miniseries, what happened was it's supposed to have been in 1989, and then on chapter two it went to 2016. So they went from the 1989 aspect of it and they went back to 1962. And then season two is going to be 1935. And then it's going to go all the way back to the original with Bob Gray in 1908. So
okay.
it's going to be real deep.
All right, next question. Okay, where does this loser club thing fit in? From my understanding, it was basically a group of kids that got bullied all the time and they kind of befriended each other and that's
Yes.
how they became loser club. But beyond that, I have no idea.
It was just basically some kids that didn't fit in, man, and everybody picked on and bullied in the actual miniseries when you saw that one. And the same thing happened too in the movie, and they were real close and good friends. And they all grew up, and at one point they all forgot, what happened with it until they came back to Derry. And that was the crazy part about it, is you actually seen that too, where when people left the town, they would forget everything. But as soon as you go back, you remember. Or it seemed like when Mike was trying to get everybody to come back in the movie in chapter two, everybody just started to have those memories, and those memories came back to them real quick. And unfortunately, in both of them, the TV series and in chapter two, Stanley couldn't handle it. He didn't want to come back to, Derry because he remembered all the stuff and it happened because at first Stanley didn't even know what was going on. All the kids seen it but Stanley, and they made him see it. And when they made him see it, he had the biggest fear from it. And you already know when it comes to it, man, he would kill an adult in a heartbeat too, but he liked the kids more because he felt like their fear was more sincere. And the more fear you have, the more he said he loved the taste of fear. So yeah, it's crazy, man. It was pretty wild, but
So basically, he would kill the kids because he fed off their soul energy.
in their fear, yes.
He also could feed off adults, but it basically wasn't as good a meal. So,
No,
like, basically, if you was a kid to him, you was like a steak dinner. You was an adult, you was more like chicken nuggets.
unless he can get you to have that fear. Because on one part of the actual Welcome to Derry, it was an episode where and I didn't mention the movie The Mist because the mist has something to do with it too, because it was like a fog or a mist that went over Derry. And if you got caught up in that mist, you got contaminated too, man. And it was pretty cool to see that part because the whole town got cold and it was like a winter Iceland. And that's when he went out then and he started stalking the people in the town. And what he was going to do was, because at first I thought he was going to go to sleep. And I said, no, nah, man, when they ended up taking one of those jars away from the pillars, I said, yeah, something's about to really good happen at this last episode. He was going to get enough kids, man, where he went to the high school and he was acting like their principal, man. And that was a creepy part, man, because he had the principal and he was making the principal talk and act like, he had him in his hand, literally like a puppet talking to the kids. And then when he was talking to him, he basically broke the dude's neck, gouged out his eyes, punted his head, in front of the kids and threw his, corpse to the ground. And when they was trying to escape, he locked the door, sung a crazy song to him about, how he loved the look and how the taste of fear. And he put the deadlights on them. And when he put the deadlights on the children, man, of course, he was gonna gather enough kids to where he can take into that wagon. And some of them was gonna be in that wagon. A lot of them were just basically floating in the air for his because of his deadlights. Because when you put somebody in them deadlights and you see his natural entity, man, it's enough to drive someone crazy. And most people who be in his deadlights, they don't technically fully die, they just be, insane and they get trapped up in that deadlight. And that's the people he feasts on. That's when it comes in with the whole 28 years or so when he comes back. By that time, he got enough people and he hoards enough people to where he don't have to come out for a while. And that's where the whole deadlights and a lot of that stuff come from with it, man. But when I tell you the series was good, man, but the sad part to me was
Okay,
I
so again, another question. So basically, Pennywise, this is his quote unquote human form,
yes,
because when he's in that dead-like form that you're talking about, the sight of him would literally drive your mind insane,
yeah.
and that's not good. So that's why he assumed this form for his purposes.
And a lot of people don't know too, man. It really ain't a he, man. It's a she. Because in the original one in the TV series, when the kids seen the deadlights, they just didn't see the deadlights. They seen it was pregnant. And that's what was going on. It basically
Now,
was
now, now, here's where I'm confused: is it Pennywise or is it something else?
it's something else. He took the form of a human, which is Bob Gray. Because you know what it was, what made that so dope too, and Welcome to Dairy is he seen how kids loved the clowns and how they was intrigued by the clowns. So that's what character he took
Oh,
because he
so
was
that's why he was clown. Okay.
intrigued by clowns and they were
Um,
intrigued by him
what
back then in the circus.
next? What's the significance of the whole red balloon thing?
I think because of the fact that he's a clown, and the balloons and the tricks that they do, and I just think that's his twisted way of luring kids in too. Because if you seen, remember I showed you the beginning credits, he did everything to like lure kids in, and that's his whole thing is to lure the kids in and to gather them up so he can feast on them for the most part because he'll feast on them for so many years, like 28 years, 25 or something of that nature, and then he'll go back and hibernate. Almost like Jeepers Creepers, but yeah, it's like on that same, level.
Okay. Now, going back to the whole Stephen King of it. Now, he is the person that created this Stephen King multiverse, but Stephen King in of himself a very interesting character. Can you kind of tell people about Stephen King and what that's
Yeah.
about?
Stephen King is crazy, man. Well, of course, we all know from some of the books and stuff that he made, but a lot of people don't know, man. A lot of that comes from being traumatized, man. He seen one of his friends die right in front of him, man. And at that point, he was traumatized. He couldn't even talk for a while. And that's why I think he got the vivid imagination of the books and stuff that he was writing. But he didn't even have memory of it. He was so traumatized after that friend died. that he just wasn't, trying to do anything. He couldn't talk and he was just kind of a mute at one point. And that's why I think a lot of his writing came from. But then he wrote a lot of our classics too, man. And they said at one point that when he was doing some of our favorites, like I told you, he don't even remember doing Cujo. He was so high on cocaine when he was doing some of this stuff on his typewriter, man, that to keep his nose from bleeding, he'll get like some cotton swabs and put them in his nose and he'd continue to write. But he didn't remember a lot of them classics. And I remember that's one of them that he didn't even remember doing Cujo. And you know how good the Cujo, if you saw that, how good that movie was.
All
But now he
right.
didn't remember that.
We got comments coming in. Road is in the building. What's going on, Road?
What's
How you
good, Ro?
doing? Welcome to Dairy and give me y'all a breakdown of that show. You got any questions or comments, Road? As always, chime on in.
But yeah, it was really to the point where he started writing those situations on crazy books because it was to get his mind off a lot of things. But he got hit at one point too and almost died by a van. And when he got hit by that van, he ended up buying that van and destroying it, you know. But yeah, he has so many fears, man. He's to the point where he has more fears than a person should have, a normal human. So this is where he get a lot of his inspiration and writing of
Right,
the book.
because I know one of his books, if I remember right, because keep in mind my mother was a huge Stephen King fan, was
Mhm.
based on the fact that he was claustrophobic, and I know
Yeah,
that had something to do with it. He also had a fear of certain animals. I want to say he had some type of fear of water, like large bodies of water.
yeah, drowning. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of us had that too, man. But
Mhm.
yes, he had so many phobics, man, that I think that that's what got into him making a lot of them movies and some of our classics too. But yeah, I still want to know, like, man, did he ever get what you never get over things like that, man? Because especially being that young and having somebody die right in front of you, man. So yeah, it was like he got a lot of twisted stuff that he done and some really genius work that he came from that, man. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting to see a lot of the stuff and some of the movies and things that he wrote. But yeah, man, I still feel like with Andy Machete, that was the best thing that could have happened when it came to the Welcome to Derry because I loved it chapter one and it chapter two, but Welcome to Derry was just good and it was a series, you know. And the crazy part about it is, E, do you know that at first Andy Machete wasn't gonna be the person who actually did the It movie or the Welcome to Derry?
No, I did not know that.
You know who was gonna do it for all the fans who don't know that was gonna do this? Because Andy Machete was one of the I guess the final two writers of this whole ordeal. It was Andy Machete. It came down to Andy Machete and the famous Duffer Brothers. That's why I think, and you guys, if you know the Duffer Brothers are the creators of Stranger Things. You know, they didn't think that that series was going to do well until it did. By that time, I think about that time they got their popularity that they were interested in doing, you know, the It movie, and they wanted to start off doing that on their own. And I thought that was intriguing, and that's why I feel like when it comes to Welcome to Derry and Stranger Things, they had some similarities because you know they were going toe to toe at one point because you know they were the main things that was on TV too, but it was just interesting to seeing that those guys wanted to do the movie too, because you never know how it would have went. But I definitely love the Welcome to Derry, and what made it so good was a lot of people who watched it, and if they was aware, is the fact that Pennywise didn't show up to the fifth episode, and a lot of people didn't know why. I liked it because the fact that you didn't see him, and they didn't overuse Pennywise for one for this Welcome to Derry, and two, they really couldn't afford him. They was paying him $800,000 per episode.
Oh wow.
They couldn't really afford that, man. And but only reason I know because at first Bill Skarsgård didn't even want to do the Welcome to Derry.
Okay,
Never
Rhoda said, never seen this show, not into the horror genre.
definitely understand. A lot of people, you know, have different tastes because I know some people who, you know, love horror and some don't like it. You know, it ain't really no in between. You either like it or you don't.
Yeah, I mean, because, no secret, like I said, we'll talk about these things on certain episodes. Not a horror fan at all. Like I said, I kind of wanted to do this episode in particular because, again, seeing Stephen King has a lot to do with this, and my mother, like I said, was a huge Stephen King fan, a big reader, period. But Danielle Steele and Stephen King was definitely the two authors that she read the most.
And what I liked about that series too, man, is the fact that you know how you have like these Game of Thrones and you have series and you have some of the people who was the writers and the authors behind it. Some of the things the writers and the authors don't care about. Because I know that Game of Thrones writer didn't like the way it ended. You know, a lot of us were still pissed at the Duffer Brothers the way Stranger Things ended. But in this case, Andy Machete is the person who wrote those and did these actual Welcome to Dairies, but then you had Stephen King right there. Every time when you seen them on set or when you seen them doing the show, you have somebody with a big newspaper and you can't see his face. Then you turn around and make one of them creepy faces. And he was there putting his input on everything to kind of help them and pick and choose how they wanted to create it. And that's what made it a masterpiece, man, because yeah, man. Like I said, if you was a true horror fan, or if you was just a good horror fan who wanted to see a good storyline, that's what that came in at. Because I like the fact that my man's too Leon Hallen, Leon Hanlon. I like the fact that that was the grandfather of Will Hanlon and the Losers Club. And then you had like certain people who had like Marge and the actual Welcome to Dairy was the one that's the episode I think really took everybody by surprise too, because you had the characters and you know they were related to some of the characters who were in the later days. But at the end of this, like that episode 8, when the girls was going and trying to get Will, Lily had one of the shards, you know, that had Pennywise trapped, and it was basically like a protector mechanism, man. You could use that and it'll keep him away. So when you had that, man, it was like protecting them, but at the same time, it was driving Lily crazy, man. You know, they said that it'll drive you insane if you keep that for too long. And so when they were on their way to get him, after the kids died and gathered up in school, and they knew that Pennywise had the kids and captured them because, of course, he left like a paper, like the wanted paper with Will on it. So the little girl Marge, of course, she got a best up eye because that episode was crazy too. Man, Pennywise to get your biggest fears, and he'll like kind of mess with you with it. It was an episode where in science they seen a situation where one of the insects had parasites in his eyes, and it made his eyes buck out real big. And of course, the parasite was, you know, pushing and pushing through until it actually killed that actual insect. So when that happened, Mars didn't like that too much. And all the kids were like, Lily for sure, man. I feel bad for her because she was the one who went through the most in the series. Because at the beginning, when that happened, when the kids died in the first episode, she was going through that pain, her and Ronnie. But nobody went through it more than Lily, because Lily had to go through it because when she went to the store, you know, Pennywise was bothering her, and it was like a thing of pickles, you know, and it was like her dead father, and all the stuff that she seen basically made her go crazy, and she was in a psychiatric ward that whole time. When she finally got out of there, she went back to school and she was constantly going back and forth. And the place just was one of the places that you noticed that where if a kid like her that went through that, man, you know, you didn't know how bad it was until you actually been through it yourself. But when Marge had that come out of her eyes, because she had the parasites, because you know Pennywise is a big manipulator, and that's what he do. And he play on your fear. Like I said, the girl eyes bugged out real big like those insects. And she was trying to kill herself. She was stabbing herself in her eyes, and she was trying to get like one of the machines and like one of the classes. I think it was shop. And she was trying to literally cut those eyes off. And you know, when she had like a chisel or something trying to stab herself with it too, that's when Lily came in and she actually tried to save Marge. Marge knew something was wrong, but didn't really know what was going on. And of course, you see Lily, man, she just come back from, you know, being in a psychiatric ward, and then she got a knife in her hand, and the little girl on the ground screaming. They thought she did it. Luckily, nothing happened because she covered for. But then that's when she found out it was something going on in Derry, and they was trying to figure out what was going on. And that's when they had her a part of their crew. Because like I said, she was part of a crew called the Patty Cake Gang. You know, little girls, man, you know, and they were like the it girls in school. And what she was there for was to manipulate Lily, man. And they was trying to make Lily look bad, you know. And when they was gonna try to do the prank on her, Marge tried to save her, and that's when that happened to Marge. So when she finally recovered, they were trying to figure out what was going on with Maddie, you know, because it was creepy. Maddie just popped up out of nowhere. And when Maddie came in the episode, they were saying that they was gonna go in the sewer and they was gonna try to find other kids. And that was the fifth episode when Pennywise basically showed himself to the kids. And that was one of the more intriguing episodes because when they knew he was there and they knew that he was for real, they were showing pictures to the adults and they'll show them things. And, you know, kids see things that adults don't. So they seen those spirits in the graveyard when they was running away and they seen certain things. But the crazy part about it was they seen Pennywise, you know. Yeah, the lady was there too, Ingrid, but they seen Pennywise, and I just think that the army knew more than what they was putting on, which they did, because they was trying to use him as like a war defense. They was trying to use him, and they was trying to say we want to gather him, and we want to use him to scare and manipulate other armies,
Hmm.
you know, use him as like a war tactic, you know. And that's why they was trying to mess around with the pillars that they had in place to actually manipulate him and to be able to try to capture him and use him as a secret weapon. And you know that didn't work out. That definitely backfired.
Okay. We do have a comment from your page. It's not showing for some reason. I think it's Demayle Latham. The Melee, is that what it is?
Yeah.
They
I'm
wanted to
hoping
know, actually not related to the show, who you got in the Super Bowl.
oh man, you know, it's a hard one. You know, I rock with the Patriots for many years, man, but I think the most explosive team, and I'm gonna give the favorite to right now, is the Seattle Seahawks, man. Because if Sam Darnold played the way he's been playing and that defense played the same, I don't see them losing. But I'm not sleeping on Drake May neither because they didn't play up to their potential yet. But if they can play anywhere near as how they was playing this year, it'll still be close. But I still have Seattle as a 3-point favorite right now.
Okay. And again, sorry y'all, they had nothing to do with the show, but we do like to address the fans whatever question they have. So here's the thing, Hugh. Again, after this explanation, am I tempted to watch the show more? Honestly, no, I'm not. But I do think that there may draw some interest because of some of the many things you mentioned throughout the scenario. My question is because it's related to both the books and the movies, what do you think would be better for people to do in order to kind of get into the mindset of Welcome to Gary? Should they read the books? Should they watch the movies? Should they do both?
They can do both because doing like reading the books, it shows it's a little bit more to it. But you know, I think if the original you know, the TV series, if I may say, I would even exclude that and I would just go straight to the movies, you know, the chapters 1 and 2.
Right, because keep in mind, Stephen King has written over 100 books. Do every last one of those books got something to do with Jerry, or just certain ones?
Certain ones ties into it
Yeah,
because
because I,
everything.
I I don't recall no discussion about a dog in here nowhere, so I'm sure Cujo
Yeah,
is not one of those movies.
because everything has its own timeline. Everything happened around the same time on some of the movies that he did. But at this point, you'll be still fine. And I told people if you watch it chapter 1 and it chapter 2, you should be okay because you'll catch on to a lot of it. Like I said with Marge, at the end of the episode 8, it was talking to her and he was manipulating her, but he was telling her things that's gonna happen that she didn't even know yet. Because what I like about it was, and this was make this whole series good, the Welcome to Dairy. He said the past, present, and the future looks the same to him. It's not any different. But he knew that in the future, that the Loser Club in 2016 was the ones who defeat him. So what he was trying to do, Ian, this will make this so deep. He tried to go back so many years. He went back from 2016 to 1989 to 1962, and he's going to jump to 1935 to 1908. You know why? Because he's trying to kill everybody who have something to do with this timeline, so it won't exist. That's what he's doing.
So there'll be no loser club. Now,
Mhm.
another thing again, the Dick Hop. Now, was he at some point the black kid in the loser club? Is that what the connection is?
No. The thing is, the connection is the grandfather in it chapter two. Because I wish you had the Losers Club from chapters 1 and 2. Because if you had that, that'd definitely help a little bit more. But he's Will's grandfather. Because in chapter 2, you notice that he survived. He was one of the people in chapter 2, and when you seen at the end of Welcome to Dairy, it was like a sheep farm that Rose had, and she was a native lady, and they were the ones who, ever since the entity of it came around, a lot of the native people were dying. So that's when they ended up finding the shard. They went and found the shard where he came from, and they put it like in 4 different areas, like to have him trapped so he can't leave Derry. But when they took one of those pillars away, that's when he was able to roam the city. So yeah, they ended up putting it back because at the end, of course, the kids got that char. They put it up in one of the pillars to substitute that pillar and put him back to rest. But yeah, man, it was actually to the point where some of the kids was ties because they're like the grandkids, and like some of the kids, like Marge in the Welcome to Dairy, she was told at the end, like I was saying, that it told her, like, yeah, your son, little Richie, was the one who actually, him and his loser club crew killed me. And I want to go back in time. And that's what I'm doing. He was gonna kill Marge, because if he killed Marge, Richie would have never existed, and that would have broke that timeline. And that's what made it so interesting, because you had the things he was doing right now, and he was trying to do, and if that didn't work, he went to 1935, and he was going all around until he was trying to kill anybody, like you said, from the loser club existence. So that's what he did. That was his main stage, was to kill off the people to where he didn't have to continue to worry about them, so it wouldn't be no future.
All right. And again, for because not a lot of comments tonight, but I know some of y'all are tuning in. Those of you that have an interest in discussing, there are several places you can go right now that have Welcome to Dairy discussion groups. That's kind of like a big thing. In fact, if you go to TikTok and type in Welcome to Dairy, it should take you to some of those places where they talk about it. Um, Now, this is season 1, of course. They are doing the season 2 and 3, to my knowledge. What would you like to see happen in season 2?
Season 2, we already know it's going to be a 1935. So I just basically want to see what happens as far as, who's going to be in that losers club, and who's going to be the ones who to be the protectors of the town and to, defeat it. That's my main thing. I want to see who's going to be the characters, who's going to be some of the people. Because now that since it was like the 1962, you're going to see probably some people in 1935, like, you know, some of the younger generations, like parents, because some of these kids, like Marge and a lot of them, you're going to see their parents, you're going to see their grandparents, and their great great grandparents from 1908, of course. I just want to see how they're going to intertwine, and they're going to have that go with the first season when they do this second season. Because what was so cool about this first season was the fact that a lot of people don't know that The young lady who was supposed to be his daughter, she basically was in there when it was basically Bob Gray. And when her father ended up dying, she didn't know. He the one who actually told her because he didn't even know who the heck she was. But he knew she had some type of interest and he could manipulate her. And that's why he was definitely doing what he did for to manipulate Ingrid. Because when he first saw her, she was with a kid. And the kid was scared and she was like in the Welcome to Derry, of course. It was something that was strange that was going on. And, she showed her the area where it happened at because, Ingrid basically manipulated her into doing it. And that's when it popped up and killed the little girl. And she was doing stuff like that. And it was sad to me because, like I was telling you too, in the black spot, she did that because at first I really thought that she really liked Hank. And that was the thing that got Hank in a lot of trouble in Welcome to Derry because when they was asking him the questions, the police was saying what happened and why, this happened at your movie theater. And but he didn't really have no like say, or he couldn't say, well, I was with, Ingrid Kirsch, because if he said he was with Ingrid, a white woman who was married back in the 60s, of course they was gonna kill him. So he basically just kept his mouth shut and went to jail. And that's when they found out he was innocent. But when he was on the run, and when he was on the run, it was Ingrid who helped him out. And it was funny because Ingrid ended up telling, the young lady what was going on. She told Charlotte what was happening, Charlotte Hamlin. And that was Will's mother in there. No, his grandmother, my bad. But what happened was she ended up telling her, like, I know where he is. They ended up getting to Hank. And when they got to Hank, that's when they went to the black spot. He was in hiding. Well, Riney went to go see him and found out her dad was there. And that was the part, that was one of the saddest parts of the actual, movie too, because you already seen the racism in Welcome to Derry. And then it was to the point where they didn't have enough evidence to get like, Hank and, put him down for good. And of course, when he ended up escaping, they were basically looking at the captain and said, man, you didn't give us enough, man. We needed this guy taken down and you couldn't even do your job. This was before everything went on at the black spot. But of course, like I said, it was an area where the black people went and partied and they was off base and, to just have people to hang out and have a good time. So they partying and, they doing their thing, they, playing blues. And the drummer was drunk so he couldn't perform. And then at this time, you had, like I said, the kids, Marge, you had Ronnie, Will, and Richie all in there. They was asking if anybody can play the drums. Richie was like, "Well, yeah, I can play." And he playing the drums. The people clapping and enjoying themselves. But that's when the former captain came in there too, and they all had on masks. They ended up bombing the place and locking the doors to where they couldn't get out. And there was a lot of people died, man. A lot of black people, unfortunately. But of course, a lot of the main characters got out of there. Dick Halloran left, and most of the people who were the characters in the show, the kids. But my man's Richie ended up dying. And that's why the last episode brought chills to a lot of people because we were sad when he died. And the kids were too. But he saved Marge and he told her, that he was doing his duty as what knights do, and he basically put her in that refrigerator so she wouldn't die. And that's what happened when he was saying, your kid Richie was the one who, him and his crew was the ones who killed me. She loved Richie so much as a kid that that's what she named her son after Marge.
Mm.
And that's when you seen Finn Wolfhard. And a lot of people know Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. And he basically said now too, and I think a lot of people from Stranger Things wasn't too happy about what he said because I think right when that last episode was about to play, he was saying he's going to be in more of the It movies. So yeah, so he's gonna definitely be a part of the next up and coming movies, whether it's the super cut, of 1 and 2, or this chapter 3. But yeah, man, when Richie died, that last episode got really good, man, because the kids, of course, they was trying to figure out what happened with Will, and they went to them because the kids in school was still, all like they was like just floating on air. And they was trying to get to their friend and they was trying to save Will. And then, Charlotte and Leon was trying to help him as well. And that's when Pennywise came about. Because, like I said, man, he could do and kind of go certain places now since the pillars wasn't in place no more. When Richie came back on that last episode, when the kids looked like they barely was able to do what they were going to do, and they wasn't going to probably be able to defeat him because it got to the point where it clearly looked like that the army was going to defeat the kids and Pennywise. They were just gonna let him go around and do whatever the hell he wanted to do. The only reason that didn't happen because the captain, when he basically was out there, he was gonna let him go. He was like, Pennywise, you can go and do whatever you want to do. Pennywise smelled him and was like, man, I remember you. He was like, I don't recognize you, but I recognize that smell. And when he was a kid, he remembered that he was one of them kids that he put a lot of fear into as well. And once he remembered, how clowns do this and make them crazy faces, he had the face that gave him the most fear. Because after when he did that, you seen the captain freak out and react like he never did before. So I think if you can scare people like because he gave him that kid fear, and that's when he ended up killing him off of there too as well. But when the kids ended up, finally defeating him, it was because Richie, man, it was like one of the native people, one of the spirits, because Dick Halloran can see spirits. Like I said, he was able to, she was able to get Richie to help out with the kids. And so Richie came past Pennywise when he was on the ground looking like he was going, get to the kids, kind of gave him the middle finger. I thought that was justice, man. But it was so much that happened in there, man. And the actual show itself, that, like I said, that you would have to really understand the books and know what was going on. But the chapter 1 and chapter 2 was where it was really at. If you really seen those two, man, and you really knew what was happening, I think that you would be a little bit more intrigued. But if you didn't see those, you wouldn't really understand that too, because at the end, they showed Ingrid Kirsch. And that was one of the best parts because one of the kids, I forgot who the lady was who died at the end. It was the girl's mother, Beverly Marsh. She died and she just went crazy and hung herself. And then Beverly Marsh from the It chapter 1 was in there. She was crying, her and her dad on the ground. And that's when Ingrid said what she said. She said basically something that was creepy. She said, once you die in Derry, you don't definitely really die, in Derry. You still be a part of you is still in Derry and you still alive. And that's how it actually ended. But from seeing what I seen, the ratings too, man, from 9.4 to 9.6, them last two episodes, I knew they had to do another one. But like you said, man, I know a lot of people chiming in. I definitely wish it was more people asking questions so I could kind of, talk to them and tell them what's going on and what I know.
Yeah,
But
I know it definitely would have been a better conversation if we had that because, as you see, I don't have much to offer this week in terms
right.
of comic.
That's what we were saying, man. And that's one of the things we wanted to do because we were saying that too. We gave y'all the chance, to say if you wanted to talk about or you wanted to discuss anything besides this, let us know before we actually do the show. But yeah, E man, I see that since we don't really got too much of an interaction, man, is there anything else or any more thoughts that you wanted to add before we get off
Okay,
the air?
well, again, like I said, not necessarily my cup of tea. And as we have these discussions from week to week, there'll be shows and y'all will be gun ho because yeah, that was your show and you love it. There'll be other shows and you'll be, kind of like how our girl Roll was like, I ain't really a horror fan, but she's supporting, so she's in the audience. We appreciate you for riding it out with us, bro. But from week to week, we gonna talk different shows, different types of shows. But most importantly, we want y'all to chime in because in the end, if several people chime in, like, okay, I want to talk about this show. of that show, then of course we know when we talk about that show, you definitely should show some interest and you'll probably have a lot more to say. That being said, hopefully if this week's show wasn't your cup of tea, hopefully you guys will have some stuff to say about next week's show. Next week's show, we're gonna talk about the classic television show Martin. Now, I think we definitely will both have a lot to say next week because Martin was definitely both of our shows where we really like Martin. Would you agree with that, Hugh?
I absolutely agree.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely have a lot to say on both ends about the show Martin. So like I said, if y'all wasn't into this one this week, that's cool. We appreciate you watching nonetheless. And next week we'll talk Martin. And of course, as always, we want to know what type of shows y'all want us to come on and talk about. Because we watch all types of TV, not just horror movies, not just comedies. We watch dramas and all that other stuff as well. So if you got a show that was your big thing back in the day, or something you know a lot about, so you can chime in the conversation more so, by all means, let us know in the comments or let us know on our messengers. You can find me at Eric Buckner on Facebook or Eric Hawk 45 on Instagram, and he will tell you where you can find him at.
You guys can catch me at Hoovy, WHOOVI on Instagram. You can also catch me at Sports Guru to You. That's my Facebook page where I put all my sports news. And of course, you could catch me at TikTok as well at Hugh.Lee6.
All right. So that being said, y'all, again, thank y'all for watching and tuning in on our discussion on Welcome to Dairy. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. And next week, like I said, we'll be on to talk about my Lawrence. So tune in for that next Thursday on Unks Talk TV. One final comment before we go. It is again from Rose. Rose says she would like to talk about living single and how friends copied them. Definitely want to actually talk about both of those shows at one point. Maybe we could have that as a group discussion on both shows. But yeah, we definitely would take that into consideration, Rose. We shall do that. But again, next week it'll be Martin. So tune in for that show. Until then, good people, thank you again for watching. We about to be up out of here to go watch some other TV, I guess. Until then, y'all, deuces, baby.